This panel is going to be called Leveraging Celebrities and Influencers in the Hemp Industry. I'm going to be welcoming one of my favorite people in the industry as your moderator today, which is Mr. Jim Baudino. Jim will be the moderator for this panel, and we're going to be introducing you to some incredible pro athletes, Mr. Riley Cote and Anna Symonds. Jim, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him first before I turn it over, though. He is an advisor, an investor, an award-winning executive that's currently a partner at Theorola Agency. This is a brand incubator and leading creative and strategic communications company. That was a hard one to say. He started his career in cannabis and hemp with Snoop Dogg and founded the global platform Mary Jane Media. Jim is a global speaker, and he's been focused on raising awareness that benefits the cannabis industry and its long history, while also dispelling all the stigmas that are out there while educating on social and economic issues and injustices. Prior to the cannabis industry, Jim spent 10 years with Toyota North America, where he held leadership roles in marketing and business development, with the latest overseeing national sponsorship and partnership strategies for Toyota's lineup, including 20 celebrities and athletes. He spearheaded relationships with brands like NBC, GoPro, NBA, Pepsi, and Live. Along with internal awards for innovation, Jim was a recipient of the auto industry's prestigious Automotive News 40 Under 40 Award. Please help me welcome my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Jim Baudino.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great lineup of respected voices in the industry. Didn't expect you to go through my whole resume, but thank you for providing that overview. So you have a great lineup today, but I just wanted to give a quick overview. One of the areas we focus on at Fiorello is leveraging celebrities and influencers to support brand growth. Over my 5 years in cannabis and my previous life with Toyota, I've seen it all, the good, the bad, and ugly, how brands work with celebrities and influencers. And, brands, they've been using celebrities and influencers for centuries. Beginning in the 1760s, where royal endorsements were used to promote products like pottery and chinaware. Over the years, we've seen a variety of well-known musicians, actors, professional athletes, TV personalities, and social media influencers promote a variety of products from alcohol to headphones. So more recently, we've seen significant increase in the number of celebrities and influencers advocating for cannabis and hemp. Some coming out with their own products, or some being used to support specific brands. Now, I am honored to be joined by Riley Cote and Anna Symonds, two professional athletes that have been advocates for cannabis and hemp well before it was a trend. They've been vocal about the benefits of cannabis and have been instrumental in bringing the conversation to a mainstream audience. So Riley is the former NHL player and currently a partner in a hemp-derived CBD and functional mushroom recovery product line called Body Check Wellness, and is also the process of building out a hemp processing facility and a curriculum with the Pennsylvania State University called Advanced Alchemy Labs. Now, Anna is a player in the USA Rugby Women's Premier League and is the Director of Education for East Fork Cultivars and serves on the Oregon Cannabis Commission's Research Leadership Committee. So thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Anna. Riley, your face is looking better.
It's looking better.
Fight with poison sumac.
Yeah, quick recovery. But yeah, it was ugly for a couple of days. So I'm thankful I'm actually able to see the screen today. So,
well, thank you both. Now, I just wanted you to each take a moment to provide some insight into how you were introduced to the cannabis and hemp industries and how it's made an impact in your life. So, Anna, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. Well, first, so so what I learned from that wasn't really the big deal that we were being told that in terms of harm or doing drugs, especially as a young athlete, you're really discouraged from cannabis. Decades before I reached a place where I understood cannabis to be the medicinal herb that it is, and hemp, you know, and all the plants in that genus. And then began to use it more strategically to support my wellness and athletic performance, specifically around pain relief, anti-inflammatory properties, getting good rest and sleep, mood and anxiety, all of these wonderful potential therapeutic properties that it offers.
Great, thank you. So Riley, what's been your history?
Yeah, so I guess my relationship with cannabis goes back to 15, 16 years old when I was introduced to it in a very recreational setting with no understanding of the medicinal value. I used it throughout my junior hockey and pro hockey career. I think it started resonating with me that it was actually really helping with anxiety and sleep, especially when I started fighting within the hockey game for a living. But it wasn't until I retired, and part of my retirement, it was an exit strategy to avoid a traditional substance abuse program and to kind of reel in my wellness and focus on self-care and self-love. Started studying natural alternatives, obviously cannabis being the main one, psilocybin mushrooms. But when I started understanding these other minor cannabinoids and started understanding cannabis as medicine, I started to make sense of it all. And that's when I really started to use it with intention and all the things that Anna mentioned there. You know, I started to make sense of my past relationship with it. So, being a fighter in hockey, the biggest one that I was trying to manage was my concussion issues, my post-concussion syndrome. And, I recognized and learned that the US government held a patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants. So it kind of flicked the switch, and it all made sense to me. And outside of just the medicinal component of cannabis that we're talking about here, what really got me attracted to it was the nutritional profile of the hemp seed. So I started understanding these different dimensions of the cannabis plant that I'd never really been introduced to. I think I remember growing up and having a hemp bracelet, and that was the only real association between cannabis and hemp and this industrial world that was misunderstood. So making sense of this all when it all kind of happened right as I retired, that I became extremely passionate about it and felt the need to advocate for it. And I started a nonprofit back then called the Hemp Heals Foundation, and just started speaking. Still do a music festival in Philly, just with Hemp Heals Music Festival, and just started kind of helping show the different faces of cannabis. Again, the nutritional components, the textiles, the building applications, obviously the medicinal and therapeutic applications. And then eventually those efforts kind of came back full circle into the sports world, and just started realizing, wow, that, athletes really do have a powerful platform to make change. And eventually my efforts turned into a different nonprofit that I helped co-found. It was called Athletes for Care. And then it started really just trying to help guys with, retirement and, the transition into the real world. But a lot of these guys were banged up with physical injuries, concussion issues, and just really a lack of identity and purpose. So tying in the cannabis plant into that seemed like a logical fit. And, it was, the rest was history, as far as my involvement in cannabis space, just really riding that sports platform to normalize and destigmatize cannabis, not just the medicine, but the whole entire cannabis plant.
Great. Well, thank you for that background. Now, I would like to get in a little bit more detail about what you're currently working on. Anna, can you provide some insight into your current role with East Fork Cultivars?
Yeah, I'm the Director of Education for East Fork, which is an Oregon farm that grows both traditional state-licensed cannabis with a focus on breeding for different CBD ratios, and then also craft hemp, which is the same plant, some of the same varieties, but legally, of course, having a low enough THC level to legally qualify as hemp. So this was a really nice expansion, I guess, of my personal passion and experience into my professional life. I had started working in the cannabis industry sort of by accident. It was opportunity to help a family friend with their business, and it also really supported the things I was learning through my personal experience. I got a spinal injury in 2013, a herniated disc and 2 bulging discs above it that gave me a lot of acute pain at the time and then chronic pain that I've had since. And I found cannabis to be by far the best resource for managing that pain and managing my physical condition while still allowing me to pursue my passion and play rugby. And then specifically, I became interested in CBD as I started hearing more about it in 2014. And with that personal interest, it opened up doors for the opportunity at East Fork. So now I actually get to spend all my time reading cannabis research, going to conferences, or back when they were in person. Now we'll have them online, and then teaching that cannabis science to others in a way that's understandable and helps them make decisions that empower their health and wellness. So it's been very rewarding to have something that I believe in that's done so much for me, and to be able to take that and share that with others in a way that truly improves their lives.
Great, thank you. And as far as the education that you're providing, what sorts of outlets do you leverage to get that education out?
We've done a few different things. First, we focused on dispensary staff. So here in Oregon, obviously cannabis is state legal, and especially a few years ago, there was a real need for additional education in that retail arena, where perhaps the folks who worked at those shops were enthusiastic about cannabis, but maybe didn't know a whole lot about CBD in particular. And so we developed a free education workshop called CBD Certified. And I went around in person to more than 100 different dispensaries in Oregon and did the workshop with the staff at these shops. So we had that in-person component, which was great. And then we sort of shifted things online as well. So obviously that's the way these days in general, but even before COVID, started doing online webinars to increase the reach of getting the information out there.
Right. And then with your role in the Oregon Cannabis Commission's Research Leadership Subcommittee, what is the objective of the organization, and what are some of the things that you've been doing to date?
That's a group that contains mostly medical professionals from different disciplines and other stakeholders in medical cannabis research. And the goal of that subcommittee is to sort of direct the commission to what the most relevant research is, the most important research, and what they should be paying attention to. So with COVID, it's interrupted our schedule a bit, but it does seem like a group that has a lot of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge and perspectives on it. So I'm pretty optimistic that we'll be able to contribute some really important guidance to the bureaucratic commissions that regulate cannabis and hemp in our state.
Thank you. So Riley, you touched on it briefly, but I'd love for you to go a little bit more detail about Body Check Wellness and some of the other programs you're working on, especially with the university and the education as well.
Sure, yeah. So Body Check Wellness is a hemp-derived CBD and functional mushroom company. Part of my healing of concussion issues was, yes, cannabis and CBD, but also functional mushrooms like lion's mane and chaga and reishi and the rest of them. So naturally, it seemed like a fit to blend the two worlds together. So and also understanding that the direction of the hemp-derived CBD space was saturated, and we wanted to be a little bit unique in that regard. So, integrating mushrooms with hemp seemed like a logical fit based on my experience. So, all things wellness, coming out with a couple different mushroom blends outside of the CBD space. So just trying to just stay somewhat diverse with that. But that project, is on its own. And then we have Advanced Alchemy Labs, which we actually signed this LOI with the Cheney University. It's the oldest historically Black university in the university in the U.S. and they've been struggling financially, and the state stepped in and they wanted to create a robust, progressive type of curriculum, bringing in sustainable, progressive industry. Obviously, hemp fits that bill, so. We had an opportunity to work with their team the last 6 months, and right before COVID hit, we signed the LOI, and obviously threw a little wrench in the progression of it. But it's an extraction facility and lab, as well as a soil to oil curriculum. We're going to actually help build out, like I said, the soil to oil component to the curriculum, helping the students understand cultivation all the way through the processing and marketing of the product. So. In the middle of that, should be a pretty interesting model. The state's behind it, obviously, state-run university. So lots of interesting things there. And then we'll tie in that to Body Check Wellness once it's all up and running. And then outside of the hemp-derived CBD space, I am working with grassroots cannabis and herbology dispensary within the Pennsylvania, mainly Philly area, on just community education. So doing, before COVID, in-person educational community events, and since COVID, it's been online, just content creation and Zoom type of informational and educational type of panels and discussions. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Right. It's great to see you both so involved with education. And I mean, that's one of the most important aspects of the cannabis industry, is to educating the population, but also whether it's brands and agencies, people in marketing, people in investments, really on just the basic level of the cannabis plant. So appreciate you both doing that work. So I did want to get into a little bit more about the organization Athletes for Care. I know Riley is the co-founder and Anna is ambassador. Can you talk a little bit more about the organization and some of the work that you've been doing and some of the people that have been involved along with you?
Sure. Yeah, this goes back about 3.5 years or so, just being on the speaking circuit, in the cannabis space, around cannabis conferences. I started running into the same old faces, and a lot of synergy all around, and just based on what they were going through and how cannabis helped increase their quality of life, save their life, or all the above. And naturally, it seemed fitting. Well, why don't we kind of come together and form, an official organization to help not just athletes, but the general public too, right? We realized that the type of issues that athletes were dealing with mimics what's going on in society. So we recognize that the identity crisis, the lack of purpose for a lot of people, just transitioning from different jobs to another, and just the way people, and say athletes in this case, were managing their pain, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. So naturally, cannabis was a great tool to introduce athletes to, and just educate this alternative medicine component. It's evolved since then. That was kind of helping guys in the moment transition out of the game, replace, whether it's opioids, alcohol, or just Ambien and all these other, toxic pharmaceuticals that athletes seem to be dependent on or addicted to. Outside of just that, it landed up being, there's a bigger picture here to helping people. It's, it's job placements, it's opportunity, it's speaking engagements, it's building brands, it's all these, different components. So we've started extending our tentacles, if you will, and started having different programs and opportunities presented to the players. Again, not just selfishly for athletes, but to extend into the community and help normalize this for the general public. Because for whatever reason, I kind of understand why, being an athlete now, why people say the general public looks up to athletes, and it's only because they put their body on the line, the physical demanding sports, concussions, the whole bit. And if they can get relief from something like this, it makes sense for them that it might work for them. So besides just spreading the good word and at events and community driven events, we're engaging in different research initiatives too. Again, not just selfishly for the athlete, it's to push out to the general public so they can grab onto this outside of just anecdotal stories. And then just recently, I think the most recent initiative we've engaged in since COVID hit was a Save Youth Sports initiative. And I think whether you played pro sports or collegiate sports or whatever level you got to, it all started with youth sports and just the powerful impact this youth sports has on developing, again, not just athletes, people, right? I mean, there's all kinds of structure and positive outcomes that come in with the youth sports program. So just trying to raise awareness, find sponsors to help fund some of these youth sports programs, because I mean, COVID's obviously affected everyone's life in some way, shape, or form. And we're talking about the youth here now, and without youth sports, they're going to have to find other things to do. So just kind of raising awareness around that. I know in the grand scheme of what we're dealing with, it seems like really a non-priority, but I really think it is a priority, because we have to create structure for our youth, especially when times are crazy and there's a lot of instability. So that's our most recent project is the Save Youth Sports program. And yeah, we're just kind of building as we go, but it's all things wellness. Cannabis is just a tool. It's one of many powerful tools. We talk about integration into wellness with these types of tools: meditation, yoga, breath work, just nutritional healing. So we talk about all these things, but obviously we have an opioid crisis on our hands, and cannabis would be naturally the most immediate tool to replace that and help increase quality of life for everyone.
Yeah, I would say also, in addition to what Riley discussed, Athletes for Care has just been an opportunity for us to pay it forward. I think the people involved in the group have had profound personal experiences of healing and their lives really improving, and they feel passionate about sharing those truths and making that medicine accessible to everyone. So, with that advocacy comes things like Marvin Washington's lawsuit against the DEA, which is ongoing and has the potential to really reform not only this industry but medicine in our country. The petition that we did to the World Anti-Doping Agency to remove THC from the banned in competition substance list, and other types of advocacy that we as athletes have, we can use our platform to really put out into the public awareness.
Anna, can you share a little bit about your experience with pain management while you're playing? What are the doctors telling you? Just give a scenario to the audience about what it's like as a professional athlete to be having to deal with so much pain and what you're being told.
Well, for my sport, it's a little different than some of the other leagues, just because rugby is a much less known sport here in the US and less financially supported. So what that means is that, I don't have a team doctor that is telling me you need to take this. But on the other hand, it's up to me to find the medical resources I need to care for myself. And even when I'm making those medical decisions for myself, I am still making them the way that an athlete does, which is with a great deal of commitment to the team and the goals of the team. So even if it's not a paycheck that's on the line for me necessarily, it could be, we're going to playoffs and I know that I'm needed on the field. So for example, one year that was the case, and I had I suffered an avulsion fracture in my foot, which is when your ligament rips a chunk of bone off of your bone, and it's really painful, swells up like crazy. And so I was taking indomethacin, which is a very powerful prescription anti-inflammatory, for about 6 weeks, and I got bleeding ulcers and just stomach pain and nausea, and it allowed me to compete through the end of the season. And I wouldn't have changed that decision, but now with what I know about the anti-inflammatory properties of CBD, for example, I would have tried that route, doing high doses of CBD to see if that could control the inflammation. And of course, THC I was already using for pain management. But I've prescribed everything under the sun in terms of painkillers, anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxants. I've had trigger point injections injected into spasming muscles. I've had a couple surgeries. I've had broken bones and chipped teeth and all these things. And there's something about athletes that just makes us, well, I guess there's probably a few things, like a predisposition to ignore pain and focus on the goal, and to not give up and really pursue those our passions with complete commitment. So I think that the tough part comes, like Riley alluded to, with retirement. You start going, oh, look at the condition of my body, and now I've got to live with this for a lifetime. And especially when that includes components of brain health and the head injuries that we tend to get in especially contact sports. There's a lot of reckoning that comes into play, and you go, okay, if I'm in my late 30s and it hurts to get out of bed or stand for more than 30 minutes or all these things, then what am I going to feel like in 10 years and 20 years and 30? So it's really kind of stepping away from that model of symptom treatment that we so often turn to in allopathic Western medicine, and really trying to get to the root of healing, like Riley also alluded to, with the physical dimension, but also the mental, emotional, and the spiritual dimensions of holistic medicine, which is where I think, again, plant medicine can be so powerful.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So I did want to now touch on a little bit more around celebrities and influencers in the space, because there are so many new brands coming out and new celebrities, and everyone saying they're using CBD for some treatment of various issues. So how can celebrities and influencers best advocate for cannabis, and what have you found to be most effective in your own lives? For now, this is just advocating for the general use of it, and then we'll get into the brand question later. And Riley, you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, I think just being genuine with how it's working, right? I mean, I think you got a handful of athletes that are very well educated and they have the experience of using these products. And then you have a handful of athletes that just got introduced to it and they're having amazing success using these products and just want to, stand on the rooftop and shout it out. And so you got different versions of how they are influencing, but I think just being genuine with your story, and I think the story is the medicine. What I've learned in these in the cannabis space and the plant medicine space in general, it's a powerful thing. So whether you can list off 20 cannabinoids or not, I don't think that's really the point. I think it's being vulnerable, being genuine, sharing your stories and how it's helped you. And I think people connect with that. I think influencing in this space more than, selling cars and, other things, I think it really does connect with people when you're sincere and you speak from the heart. So that's from my own personal experience and what I've seen.
Great. Thank you. Anna, how about you?
I completely agree with everything Riley said. I think honesty and integrity is really integral to an endorsement, so to speak. I think, you don't really want somebody who's in it just for the paycheck. Not only because, for multiple reasons, but really this is, it's, as an effective endorsement, you do want someone who really believes, who has that same passion for your product that you do, because they've experienced the effectiveness of it, which really ties into the social responsibility around cannabis medicine and hemp CBD medicine. It is something people use as medicine, and it is a therapeutic substance. So it's really not just another shampoo or what consumer product. So we do have a responsibility to make sure that we are creating medicine that's both pure and effective, whether that's just at the level of a supplement, or if it's something that's more potent and is really going to be addressing more serious medical conditions.
I think that's important for the influencers and any celebrity getting into the space to really understand the product and do their research and make sure that the product's effective and all of the benefits it states, being cautious about that. It's above board. It's following regulations because you wouldn't want that impacting yourselves. Now, as far as brands, and when brands are getting into the space, how can they leverage influencers and celebrities, even brands that are starting off that may not have the budget? What do you recommend brands being able to do to get those influencers and potential celebrity partners just to help promote themselves and their brand? Anna, continue with you.
Sure. I think some of that is connecting with the right people, particularly if you don't have a big budget. That might actually end up being a good thing for you, because you'll have to work a little harder to find the right people, but that gives you a greater chance of finding someone who sincerely loves your product and will endorse it wholeheartedly, and in perhaps, exchange for free product. And that might be all for some folks. I think another important factor is, as Riley kind of pointed out, there are people who have been outspokenly talking about these issues for a while in the public eye. And then there are a lot of folks who are newer to the scene. And we welcome everyone to join the party, but recognize that you have some extra credibility if you align yourself with people who have been sharing this message and have taken it upon themselves to advocate even before it was so popular and when it was more risky. So you can gain a lot of credibility that way as well.
Got it. Okay, we are running out of time. I think there's one question. Tracy, can we answer that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Riley, what do celebrities and athletes look for in companies when deciding who to endorse and market with?
I just think it goes back to what Anna was just talking about. You find a brand that you connect with, right? I mean, if you're heavy into the recreational cannabis, you would align yourself with a company that's really branding themselves as a high THC recreational cannabis brand. If you're more in the science of it, or more in the non-psychoactive side of it, you align with someone that's a little bit more in that world and research heavy and whatnot. I think it just lands up being the individual connecting with the right brand. I think this is, again, a little bit different than finding that car dealership or that shampoo company, because I think there's so many different companies, and then the philosophies, at least on the medicinal side of whether it's cannabis or hemp, are very similar. But there is there is still some philosophy differences, especially when you start leaching over into the recreational type of world. So I think it's just all based on the individual itself. I mean, how much are you willing to put yourself out there? How educated are you on these products? Or you just want to put your face on there? Or do you want to do actual education and actually, getting in the community and talking about this? So everyone's at a different level in their, in their cannabis journey. And based on that, I think it's the decision lands up being just how much you or little you want to get involved in, and the type of brands you want to get involved with.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Tracy, for having us.
That was a wonderful, wonderful talk. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, and thanks for coming today.